Freddie Williams, and I'm answering another question in my how-to series, the behind the scenes of creating comic books. This question comes from Holy Joe 22, and they ask, "Hey Freddie, how do you motivate yourself to sit down and do the work? I have a lot of anxiety before I sit to work and while I'm working. Do you do anything to relax before working? How do you stop excessive self-criticism and comparing yourself to other artists?" Excellent question. It's a lot of it is about psychologically training yourself. If you have gotten a job doing comics, or if you've got the passion, that will, the passion part of it, the interest, the drive will come from that passion to begin with. As you might imagine, drawing 22 plus pages a month is very time consuming. So I have always been a pretty focused individual. I'm able to focus my interest or my concentration on one thing at a time, and that's a good methodology of working. Is let's look at the big picture, but let's not get overwhelmed, and let's just take it one step at a time. Break it down to small, digestible, or bite-sized pieces that will add up to a larger sum later, so that you don't feel overwhelmed or whatever. Because if you feel overwhelmed, you'll find a way to distract yourself or to procrastinate. And part of it is that I really try hard to avoid just distraction. We haven't watched new movies in quite a while, basically because if there's something on, like an old episode of Family Guy or The Simpsons, I know those things. I can barely kind of glance up and enjoy the show. Or if it's a movie I've seen, like The Matrix, that I've seen over 100 times, those are movies that won't cause distractions. But if it's a new movie, I'll find myself being pulled away from the artwork. My focus will shift to the movie and then kind of draw in between the climaxes or the loud sound effects if it's a horror movie or something. And so I've learned to avoid those distractions. I don't play video games. I used to be a huge Magic the Gathering fan, and I've had to pretty much distance myself from that as well. So whatever. The point is that to learn to avoid distractions, to not get overwhelmed by a large job, and learn to break it down into pieces. The next part of that is, how do you, or do I do anything to relax before working? No, not really. I don't think that's a bad thing to do. The closest thing I do is I go in little bursts of doing exercises and trying to get into shape or whatever, or less bad shape, and I'll do some stretches, including some forearm exercises and stuff that works my hands and my forearms. That's not really relaxing, but I guess it's kind of warming up or something. How do you stop excessive self-criticism and comparing yourself to other artists? When I was towards the end of high school, and then for the next couple of years after that, I was a huge Jim Lee fan. I still am, but I tried to be like a Jim Lee clone. And the analogy I use for that now is using another artist for influence or inspiration can be good, especially when you're starting off. But it's kind of like a skeleton that you're grafting yourself onto. The skeleton of that artist helps to give you something to cling to develop your own shape or something, the shape of your artistry, to stretch this analogy beyond recognition. But eventually that skeleton can become a cage. It can start to confine you. A good example of this is, I remember drawing, my tendency is to draw some kind of exaggerated facial expressions and stuff, and Jim Lee doesn't do that as much. And I remember I would be drawing a face that kind of looked expressive. I liked it, but then I would kind of catch myself and go, but Jim Lee wouldn't do it this way, and I would correct myself as if that was the rule that I should be shooting for. And also, once you get established work as a professional, when do you stop doing that? It becomes hard to know. Once you've established a style and readers know what to expect, or editors know what to expect from you, that might not be the best time to suddenly change your style. the way that I have avoided being paralyzed by comparing myself to another artist or something is just trying to detach myself from that skeleton, the skeleton of Jim Lee. This sounds really morbid. I didn't expect it to sound so morbid. I was attached to Jim Lee's skeleton, and then I pulled myself off. Is to move away from that artistically and try to, listen to myself, find the artist that I wanted to be. Thank you. It was a very good question. Oh, crap. There's another part of this. Going along with this question, somebody recently emailed me a question of how do I budget my time to keep productivity up and keep things straight. At this point, I've kind of gotten into a rhythm of how to, I know how much I can get done per day, which equals how much per week and then per month. So basically just get a calendar and, write out the, what you think realistically you can get done each day. That's your goal. If you finish early and still feel motivated, start working on the next day's work. Make it a little bit easier for yourself. And if not, then you can kind of give yourself permission to take the night off, because look, I just finished what I had scheduled. I've earned this break or something like that. So yeah, I think that's and that, not to make this belabor this point or make this long answer even longer, but once you get into that rhythm, you begin to build momentum that, when you're hot, in quotes, day 12 of your deadline or something, you've gotten into a rhythm of drawing those characters, to drawing that scene, to drawing the mood of the book. So when you sit down, to draw, your mind is already in the game, and you're going to be drawing stuff that's appropriate to that mood or that setting faster than if you came in cold, so to speak. So, and moving from one issue of a book to the next issue, if you try not to let that momentum fall away, then psychologically you'll be more in the game from issue to issue. When I was drawing Robin, and I was doing it like in 3 weeks, per issue, and I was working full-time at Hallmark Cards, my deadlines were crazy. But I felt like I was sprinting so fast that from one issue to the next, I just kind of hopped over any gulf or any chasm or any, dip in thought process or whatever from one issue to the next. And there was almost no time to kind of second-guess myself or whatever. I was just sprinting the entire time for over a year, A very good question. As you can tell, it hits on a lot of subjects. I hope that helps, though. And stick around, because I'm about to answer another question.